Hey, it's me, Angelo, and you've made it to another section in this course. In this section, we're going to be going over brand identity, so you can begin to develop a brand within your business that you can market and grow. This lesson is all about visual elements. Things like your brand's font, colors, and logo are very important when making a consistent, marketable brand. Today, brands have less than 1 second to capture customers' attention. Maybe 5 seconds if you're paying for a YouTube ad, but that's still not a lot if you think about it. With such little time to capture customer attention, if you're always changing your brand's fonts, colors, and graphics in your content, it can be hard for a customer to build up familiarity needed to make a purchase. Did you know that research shows it takes an average of 7 times of a person interacting with your brand before they feel confident enough to make a purchase? Now think about it. How long would that take if every time the person thought they were interacting with your brand for the first time? In this lesson, I've compiled a bunch of tips, tricks, and tools that you can use to begin building the branding building blocks of your business. So, let's dive in. All right, everyone, welcome to your first lesson in the brand identity section. In this lesson, we're going to be talking about visual elements, fonts, colors, and logos. Not only talking about the strategy behind these ideas, but also giving you a live demo and tips and tricks on where you can find people to do these ideas for you or download some of these things yourself. If you are already happy with the visual elements of your brand or you don't need any help with this, I'm okay if you skip this lesson. However, if you need any of these ideas or resources, let's go ahead and dive in. As I mentioned, we're going to be kicking things off talking about brand identity as a whole and learning how to build recognizable brand elements for your business. Then we're going to be talking about colors and how you can set colors for your brands. That's where I have a live demo for you guys today. And then we'll be talking about logos and talking about what elements you should include and some ideas behind logo theory. Let's start off this lesson with a knowledge check and ask ourselves, what is a brand identity? Well, a brand identity is the visual elements of a brand, such as the color, design, logo that identify and distinguish the brand in the customer's mind. When it comes to brand identity, it's not just one of these things individually, but how all these things work together and build a cohesive look and feel. That is brand identity. Our first section in the brand identity is fonts. Now, when it comes to fonts, fonts can be a great way to build identity around your brand. By consistently using the same font, you can create brand recognition with just text. No colors, no logos, just people looking at your text and saying, I know what brand that is. When it comes to fonts, there's two main styles to establish for your brand. They're going to be heading fonts and body fonts. We'll take a look at both of those a little bit more in depth right now. Most of us are familiar with heading fonts in the term, but a couple of things to remember about heading fonts is that it only takes a few seconds for customers to get a first impression of your brand. Heading fonts are usually one of the first things that will stand out. The font you choose for your heading font has the power to entice readers and capture their attention. One of my favorite heading fonts to use is Dosage. You can see it up here on the top. I use it in these lessons. I also use it on my website and across a lot of my content. I like it because as a heading font, it has a little bit of characteristics to it, but it doesn't stand out too much. One thing you want to avoid when you're heading font is something that is too fancy and too distracting. Your heading font should build on your brand, not take away from it. So if you're using a heading font and you find that it's hard for customers to read what it says, or it takes too much time to really get into what's going on, you might want to switch for something that is just a little bit more simple that can convey your message a little bit faster. Remember, we only have seconds to get customers' attention. And if you're spending those seconds with them reading what is going on the screen, you may lose them. After heading fonts, obviously, it's going to be body fonts. And body fonts will make up about 90% of your website or any written content. So make sure the body font you choose is not too stylistic and doesn't distract too much from your message. This is not the place for you to use too much personality. My favorite body font is Poppins. I not only use it throughout this entire course, I use it on my website and in anything I pretty much publish if I have control over it. I like Poppins because it's a little bit different than the standard stock Arial. That's pretty much a default body font on most places, but it still is clean enough that it doesn't distract away from what I'm presenting. I will almost never recommend using a cursive font as a body font, as it's hard for people to read it when it's small, and you will lose a lot of people if you have too much cursive on your website. Try to stick with fonts that are like Poppins, Arial, or Montserrat, and you will never go wrong with picking a body font that complements whatever heading that you use. On this page here, I've compiled a couple of resources for you to get fonts. Sometimes finding fonts can be difficult or it can be very expensive, so check out this list and you can maybe find some fonts for free, with the exception of Envato, which is a subscription service that allows you to download a host of different visual elements like stock photography and even stock music. Envato is going to be the only thing on here that is a premium service. It's actually a freemium service if you remember that from our business models. But everything else on here is going to be free, and it'll let you find fonts that you can use not only across your brand, but maybe in your logo and other graphic elements as well. Now that we've brushed up on fonts, let's take a look at colors. And I'll let you guys know, one thing that's common with colors and branding is that a lot of brands do not have very specific coloring that it needs to build a consistent brand. What I mean by that is that some brands may say that their colors are purple. And honestly, there are a million different versions of purple, and not all of them go together. And so if you're using a different version of purple in every single one of your content, or your website has 14 different colors of purple on it, it's gonna look a mess. And I don't mean that in a negative way or to be rude, but you really have to get a set of colors, maybe 3, 4, or 5 colors that you use consistently across all of your brandings, and only stick to those hex codes unless you change out your entire branding all over again. Let's take a deeper look. Using a group of set colors consistently when marketing your brand is one of the easiest ways to establish visual identity around your brand. This is what I was just talking about. There's a lot of brands that we can think of. We can see their colors in our head without even thinking of a logo or where they are. Target is red and white. Walmart is royal blue and gold. And we know those things without even having to see a logo or step foot inside the store. You can do those same kind of things with your brand colors and your customers as long as you consistently use the same colors. Another thing to consider when setting your brand's colors is that color and color theory go a lot deeper than what is the favorite color of the brand owner, or something like my brand sells organic products and so I want the colors to be green to match earth. That can be a good strategy for setting brand colors, but I want you guys to realize that color is a powerful communication tool. It can be used to signal action, influence mood, and even influence psychological reactions. There's a reason why most social media icons are blue, and it has nothing to do with the favorite color of Mark Zuckerberg. It's because the color blue is a trustworthy color, it makes you feel calm and serene, and there's no psychological blocks that tell your brain to stop when they see the color blue. Unlike the color red, in America specifically, we've been all trained to stop when we see the color red. So if you see the red app icon, you may pause before clicking it, or your brain might have a slight delay or aversion to opening that app. These small things in customer psychology can help you in setting your brand colors and building your brand identity. Our next section is going to be about logos. Logos are some of the biggest headache generators for entrepreneurs. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to tell you how to do your logo or what should go in it, but I will tell you something that might help you to take some stress out of how you can manage your logo strategy for your business. When it comes to logos, logos are a standard part of a business's brand identity. Even if your logo is comprised of only a font, this image will be closely associated with your business. A lot of businesses right now are following the trend of making their logo kind of a signature that's their brand name, and I love that. Go with the trend and do what's current. However, as a business owner, you should be prepared to update your logo as times change and as trends change. What I mean by that is, let's say in 3 years, 5 years, or even 12 months, people are not doing signature logos anymore. The brands have moved on to something stylized, drawn, or maybe a square image or a banner, whatever's going on in logos. You should be prepared to update your signature logo to whatever's current. Otherwise, people may look at your brand and think that you're outdated and that you're not current. And that brings us up to our class activity for this section. I want you to pause the video and I want you to think if you can name an example of a popular company that's logo has changed since you were a kid. And I have a couple of examples for you after the break. For my first example, I think some of you guys might have this on your list as well. And I went with McDonald's. Now you can see since 1940, McDonald's has changed their logo a lot. And a lot of us are familiar with the golden arches, but I personally didn't even know that they had 3 different iterations before they even landed on that. And you can see between 2000 and 2006, they changed their logo 3 times. I love this example because McDonald's is such a giant global brand with such a recognizable logo and image. And you can see, even with that much pressure, they're not afraid to update with the times and change, and they're not too stuck on their logo to where it's something that has to be permanent and set. Imagine if they were still using the same logo from 1940. We may never know the golden arches. We may never know I'm loving it. And we may never know some of the most recognizable brand imagery that exists in the whole entire world. Our next example is AT&T. And I like this example because it might fit a scenario plaguing some of your businesses where AT&T not only went through iterations within their individual logos, but at some point around 1969, AT&T changed their entire name. They used to be known as Bell Systems or Pac Bell, depending on what part of the country you lived in, and now they're known as AT&T. However, even within their iterations, you can see that AT&T only does minor changes. Things like making the circle line a little bit thicker, changing the style of a bell just a little bit, or like between 1999 and 2016, all they did was test out uppercase and lowercase fonts. Small changes can make a really big impact on your business, so never be afraid to go small. Changing your logo doesn't mean having to go from 1964 to 1984. Sometimes it can mean going from 2005 to 2016 on this chart. Our last example is Adidas, and I love this example because not only do they have different iterations of their logo, but unlike our last examples, Adidas uses a lot of these logos in their designs to this day. Their 1971 and their 1990 logo are still found on popular products being printed today. In fact, they've been able to brand their 1971 logo to the classic style of Adidas products, to where if you see a classic Adidas product, it's probably going to feature the 1971 logo. Their 1990 logo is found a lot on their shoes and on their fashion apparel, and a 2005 logo is usually found on their athletic apparel. In fact, right now, when I'm making this video, I can see that Adidas is testing out a new version of their logo, which is the 1990 logo without the word Adidas on the bottom. This is something that you can do for your brand too. By keeping your original branding part of your brand's history and ecosystem, you can not only reuse some of your previous graphic content, you might be able to brand products within the overall branding of your business. I know I haven't given you much in the way of helping you actually create your logo, so I won't leave you without a couple of resources. These places will get you on the road to getting your logo created yourself or finding someone to do it for you. Places like Fivver and Upwork will allow you to find freelancers to complete your logos for you, and places like Canva and Envato will allow you to make the logo yourself. Canva is actually a really good place if you're thinking about making a signature logo. All you have to do is open a blank canvas and then type your name of your company in there and go through their list of fonts and see which one really stands out for your business, export it as a PNG, and boom, you have a logo. Envato is going to be great for those people who are good with programs like Photoshop and Adobe Illustrator. You can use that service to download graphic elements, fonts, and maybe even some branded templates that you can compile together for a custom logo. And just like that, we have finished another lesson. In this lesson, we covered brand identity, and we started learning how you can create recognizable brand elements. We also talked about things like your brand colors and looked at a really cool color website. And we talked about your logo, and I told you some strategy behind not sticking with your logo too long and where you can find someone to help you out with creating your logo. As always, I hope you learned something. I hope you had a little bit of fun, and I hope I see you for our next lesson, which is going to be about audiences and personas. I'll see you there. Today, brands have less than 1 second to capture a customer's attention. Maybe 5 seconds? Not an emergency. Not an emergency. I was doing so well.